if you break an arm, getting an x-ray gives you this really clean binary answer, right? It's either broken or it's not.
Right, yeah. You get that jagged white line on a glowing screen.
Exactly. The doctor points to it, and you have instant, undeniable visual proof of reality. It's a very comforting crutch.
It really is. We are just completely addicted to seeing the mechanics of our world.
We are. But I want you to step back into the 1940s for a minute, where that visual crutch is just entirely kicked out from under you.
Oh, yeah. Completely gone.
Right. The entertainment relied on an artistic landscape that was completely, terrifyingly invisible. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is to tear apart the raw, unedited broadcast transcripts of the golden age of radio.
Which is just a fascinating archaeology project, really.
It is. We are trying to figure out how writers essentially hacked the human imagination.
Yeah, because we're looking at a time when millions of people organized their entire week around the glow of this wooden box in their living room.
Just a box making noise.
Exactly. The writers of this era, they didn't have CGI. They didn't have lighting designers. They didn't even have, facial expressions to convey emotion.
Yeah. I mean, they were working with the absolute bare minimum of sensory input.
Right. Just voices cutting through static and maybe the ambient noise of a Foley desk.
And the specific transcripts we pulled for you today, they sit at absolute opposite ends of the emotional spectrum.
Yeah, they really do.
Even though they aired in the exact same era. On one side, we have the absolute zenith of American comedy, the Jack Benny program.
A classic.
And on the other, this incredible, grim, hard-boiled thriller from the Suspense series. It's an episode called Concerto for Killer and Eyewitnesses.
Talk about tonal whiplash.
Right. But our mission here isn't just to recap these stories. It's to deconstruct the specific auditory mechanics these writers use to manipulate millions of brains simultaneously.
Because it really was manipulation.
Totally. With just the flick of a dial, they could build a hilarious, warm, cinematic universe and then, instantly plunge you into sweat-inducing, pitch-black psychological terror.
The contrast is jarring. But the underlying engineering, the actual mechanics of it, is identical.
How so?
Well, both sets of writers are essentially handing the listener an architectural blueprint.
Okay.
And the audience is the one doing the unpaid labor of actually building the sets, painting the walls, and lighting the scenes in their own minds.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and when we examine the Jack Benny scripts, you see that the architecture of that specific comedy is incredibly rigid.
Right, almost mathematical.
Exactly. It's mathematical in how it sets up a joke.
Let's pull the foundation apart on that, actually. Starting with the audio persona Jack Benny constructed for himself.
Yeah, this is key.
Because looking at this text, Benny is actively hostile to the idea of a traditional leading man.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, a leading man in the 1940s is supposed to be like Clark Gable or Cary Grant, right?
Yeah, right. Aspirational, brave, generous.
Yeah.
Highly competent.
Yeah. But Benny went the exact opposite direction. He built a protagonist defined by extreme, almost cartoonish flaws.
He really did.
He is monstrously vain, he's untalented, and he is cheap to a degree that just completely defies logic.
Which you have to remember is a massive risk for a performer to take at that time.
Why is that?
Well, consider the context of the era. The country had just crawled out of the Great Depression.
Right.
And they were navigating the economic anxieties of the Second World War. So money was a point of profound stress for everyone.
That makes sense.
So to center a national comedy show around a wealthy man who was pathologically obsessed with hoarding his pennies, I mean, that could have easily alienated the entire country.
Yeah, I could see people just turning the dial in disgust.
Exactly. But the writers were so careful to frame his cheapness not as a form of power, but as this paralyzing neurosis.
And you see that neurosis perfectly in the packing sequence from the transcript.
All that scene is brilliant.
Benny is getting ready for a cross-country train trip to New York, and the script gives us his internal monologue.
Right.
Which is literally just him performing these agonizing mathematical gymnastics to figure out how little cash he can get away with carrying.
It's so funny.
He calculates 9 meals in the dining car over the course of the trip, right?
Yeah.
And at 50 cents a meal, he arrives at a total of $4.50.
Which is wild to think about now.
Right. But he actually debates whether to bring that much. He considers having his butler pack sandwiches instead, just to avoid the diner entirely.
Right.
But ultimately decides, and this is a direct quote from the script, to be on the safe side, I'll take $5.
$5?
$5 for a luxury trip to New York.
It's the specificity of the math that makes it so brilliant. He isn't just frugal, he is trapped in a prison of his own accounting.
Yeah, he really is.
And the script pays off that anxiety later when we find out he actually did have his butler, Rochester, pack the sandwiches in his steamer trunk anyway.
Yes. Rochester complains about it. He points out that while all the other passengers were enjoying the luxury of the dining car, they had to sneak back into the baggage car to eat.
In the pitch black.
Right, and the sensory details the writers used to paint that baggage cart scene are wildly vivid.
So good.
Rochester says, "It was so dark in there. Remember how you got mad when I thought your fingers were asparagus tips?"
That line is incredible.
And Jack defends himself, saying, "You didn't bite my fingers." And Rochester delivers the punchline, "No, fortunately you stopped me just as I was dipping them in the mayonnaise."
I love that. Notice how the dialogue forces your brain to do all the work there.
Right, they don't have visual cues.
Exactly. The writer doesn't just tell you it's dark. They tell you a man almost dipped his boss's fingers in mayonnaise because he couldn't see them.
It's such an active, participatory form of comedy.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And the same dynamic applies to Jack's interactions with his French violin teacher, Professor LeBlanc.
Oh, man, the violin lessons.
Yeah. Jack forces this long-suffering artist to wait endlessly for a payment of $1.85.
Right, and then he deducts money.
Yeah, he deducts 15 cents.
Yeah.
Because the professor insulted his playing.
Now, wait, I'm going to challenge the premise here for a second.
Okay, go for it.
If you encountered someone this incredibly stingy, delusional, and arrogant in real life, you wouldn't find them charming.
No, absolutely not.
You would block their number. You would actively avoid them at parties.
For sure.
So why did millions of Americans invite this specific narcissist into their living rooms every single Sunday? Like, how does a personality that toxic translate into warmth over the radio?
That is the big question, right? And it translates because Benny willingly strips himself of all dignity.
What do you mean?
Well, he operates somewhat like Wile E. Coyote.
Oh, interesting.
Right. We don't hate the coyote for trying to kill the roadrunner. We pity him because his elaborate traps always blow up in his own face.
Oh, I see.
Benny's miserliness never actually harms anyone else. It only ever ruins his own life.
That's a really good point.
He doesn't hoard power. He hoards anxiety.
Yeah.
And to make that anxiety tangible on the radio, the writers had to give it a physical location.
Okay, yeah.
And they had to build a monument to his neurosis.
You're talking about the vault.
I am absolutely talking about the vault. It is arguably the greatest auditory set piece in the history of the medium.
It's amazing.
It's this incredibly elaborate subterranean fortress buried deep beneath his house. And it only exists in the Foley work and the dialogue.
The gauntlet he has to run just to get to his own money is absurd.
Completely absurd.
The script calls for the sounds of barbed wire, landmines, a heavy drawbridge, and an actual live alligator.
Yes. An alligator.
That's not even a throwaway gag. Jack actually stops his descent to feed the alligator ether so it will fall asleep.
Right, he just casually drugs an alligator.
He has a full conversation with the reptile.
And then, at the very bottom of this dungeon, living in perpetual darkness, is his armed guard, Ed.
Ed! Oh my gosh.
The sensory isolation down there is so absolute that Ed's grip on reality has completely snapped.
It's so dark, but so funny.
When Jack arrives, Ed asks for an update on the election, fully believing Abraham Lincoln is running.
He thinks the Civil War is currently raging.
Exactly. And Jack tries to comfort him by saying things are looking up on the outside because they're manufacturing automobiles again.
Right, and Ed's response is to ask if the cars will frighten the buffalo.
It's just layer upon layer of delusion.
My favorite detail is when Ed finally gets a brief glimpse of the surface.
Oh yeah, when he escapes.
He manages to escape up to street level, but he immediately runs back down into the dungeon in sheer terror.
Because of what he saw.
Right, because he claims he saw a red and yellow dragon eating up a lot of people.
Which is just a bus.
Yeah, Jack has to sigh and patiently explain the concept of a modern city bus to him. The layers of delusion are staggering.
And it all culminates in the ritual of the vault combination itself.
Oh,
Benny recites it meticulously. Right to 45, left to 160, back to 15, then left to 110.
Wow.
That combination operates as an incantation. It grounds a wildly surreal, cartoonish environment in a rigid mathematical reality.
Okay, yeah.
It shows the audience that Jack's obsession is methodical.
Okay.
But going back to your question about why we love him,
Yeah.
if Jack Benny existed in a vacuum, if it was just him monologuing about his money, it would be profoundly sad.
It really would. It would just be an audio tragedy at that point.
Exactly.
So it requires friction.
Precisely. His comedy requires a highly specific ecosystem of people whose sole purpose is to react to his absurdity.
Right.
Benny's true genius, both as a performer and as a producer, was realizing that he was the anvil, not the hammer.
I love that analogy.
He built a supporting cast and generously handed them all the best punchlines. He let them dismantle him week after week.
Let's break down that ecosystem then, because reading the interplay between these characters is fascinating.
It's a masterclass.
Every single person in the script is a specialized tool designed to puncture a different aspect of Jack's ego.
Yes.
Look at Rochester, played by Eddie Anderson. On paper, in the rigid class structure of the 1940s, he is Jack's butler.
Right.
But in the reality of the audio universe, Rochester is the undeniable intellectual superior of the household.
Rochester operates on a completely different frequency of cool.
He really does.
He subverts the power dynamic constantly,
Yeah.
but he does it with a smoothness that makes Jack look utterly frantic and uptight.
Like when Jack is lecturing him about packing light for the train, Rochester doesn't argue. He just casually agrees.
Right.
He notes that he's traveling light this year, too. 1 pair of shoes, 2 pair of shorts, 3 pair of socks, and 4 pair of dice.
The dice.
He's completely transparent about running some sort of side hustle, and Jack is completely powerless to stop it.
Then you have Mary Livingstone, who functions as the cynical grounding wire for the show.
She is great.
If Jack tries to inflate his own importance, Mary is the pin that pops him. But she also serves as this bizarre conduit for surrealism through the letters she reads from her mother.
Oh, those letters are incredible. They always detail the exploits of Mary's supposedly hideous sister, Babe.
Yes, Babe.
In one script, Mary deadpans a letter reporting that Babe went to a medical convention and was voted, "Miss, it shouldn't happen to a dog of 1945.
It's so mean, but so funny.
And in another, Babe breaks her leg because she thought a ladder leaning against the house was an awning, and she just confidently stepped out of a second-story window.
Just walked right out.
Yeah, and Jack just has to sit there and absorb this influx of mundane insanity.
And if Mary is grounded cynicism, Phil Harris is pure, unadulterated id.
Oh, Phil.
Phil is the band leader, but the writers portray him as this boozy, flashy, aggressively confident chaos agent.
And he constantly disrespects Jack by calling him Jackson.
Right. Phil's entire existence offends Jack's sensibilities.
He drives a car that literally has the words "handsome, ever-loving, curly-headed joy boy" painted directly onto the door.
Not on a placard.
No. Painted on the metal. And he's always asking Jack to fund his extravagant lifestyle.
Always.
In one transcript, he demands $2,000 to buy new tuxedos for his band.
Right.
And Jack, trying to be reasonable, assumes it's so the band looks professional on the stand.
Makes sense.
But Phil immediately corrects him, explaining that they need the tuxedos so they can pick up extra cash during the day by moonlighting as pallbearers.
It's morbid, it's hilarious, and it highlights the contrast perfectly. Phil lives large, he drinks heavily, and he burns through cash.
Which is anathema to Jack.
Exactly. And rounding out this ensemble is Dennis Day, the tenor.
Dennis is amazing.
Dennis is sweet and naive, but he operates on a broken calculator logic that completely short-circuits Jack's brain.
The scene at the racetrack is the perfect distillation of Dennis. Jack is agonizing over the daily racing form,
Right.
analyzing weights, jockeys, and track conditions to find the scientifically perfect bet.
Uh-huh.
Dennis wanders up and cheerfully announces he already placed his bet on horse number 12.
And Jack asks for his system.
Right, and Dennis takes him on this mathematical fever dream.
Let's hear it.
He says the horse is carrying 116 pounds, and it's the 6th race, so he adds 6 to 116 to get a 122.
Okay.
Then he adds 18 to get 140. Since it's the 4th week of the month, he divides by 4 to get 35.
It's so convoluted.
He subtracts his own age, 26, leaving line. Then he just casually adds 3 and bets on number 12.
And this is where Benny's timing becomes the focal point of the comedy.
How so?
Well, Jack follows the psychotic arithmetic all the way to the end, and the script builds in a long, agonizing pause.
The famous pause.
Yeah, Benny just lets the silence hang there before he asks, in total exasperation, why did you add 3?
And Dennis responds with total sincerity, well, how else can you get to 12? It's bulletproof logic in his own mind.
Completely bulletproof.
You know, looking at how all these characters function together, it's like watching a very dysfunctional comedic solar system.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Jack is the sun. He provides the gravity that holds the entire show together. But instead of just orbiting him peacefully, all the planets are actively trying to eclipse him and steal his light.
That's a brilliant way to frame it. And the reason the solar system doesn't collapse is because of Jack's reactions.
Right.
We talked about the pause, Benny's true instrument wasn't his voice, it was his silence.
That's so true.
When Phil said something outrageous, or Dennis completely broke logic, Jack's famous pregnant pause, or his exasperated sigh, or his iconic drawn-out, well, that told the audience exactly how to feel.
He was conducting the laughter.
He absolutely was.
But conducting that laughter required the audience to learn a specific language.
Yes, definitely.
This ensemble didn't just share a fictional space. They shared a sonic real estate built on recurring situations.
The running gags.
Right. The writers Sam Perrin, Milt Josephsberg, George Balzer, John Tackaberry, they didn't just write quick jokes. They engineered the running gag into a complex literary device.
Almost like Dickensian callbacks.
Exactly.
It's the architecture of repetition. Let's analyze the train station motif.
Okay, let's do it.
The Santa Fe station is a massive recurring piece of real estate in this audio universe. Every time they go, you have the legendary voice actor Mel Blanc playing the exasperated PA announcer.
Oh, Mel Blanc is incredible.
And his vocal cadence is practically burned into the paper of these transcripts. He constantly shouts, "Train leaving on track 5 for Anaheim, Azusa, and Cucamonga."
Out of context, naming 3 California towns isn't inherently funny.
No, it's not.
But the writers turned it into an audio establishing shot.
What do you mean by that?
Well, in a movie, you show the exterior of a building so the audience knows where they are, right?
Right.
On the radio, the writers used ambient crowd noise, a train whistle, and Mel Blanc's specific rhythmic incantation of Cucamonga to orient the listener. It anchored the scene.
That's spot on. And once the audience is anchored, you can introduce recurring chaos.
Like the suitcase mix-up.
Yes, like the suitcase mix-up at the station. This is a scene built entirely on the horror of losing your identity.
It's so stressful to listen to.
Mary's luggage is swapped with a man's luggage. The man approaches Jack and with absolute aggressive confidence insists on calling him Mervyn.
He just steamrolls Jack's reality.
Completely.
And the moment Jack finally gets rid of him, a second stranger wanders up, slaps Jack on the back, and calls him Bill.
It just keeps going.
This guy launches into an incredibly detailed, entirely fabricated shared history. He talks about how they met at a convention in Kansas City.
Right.
And he reminisces about the time Bill supposedly sold the city of Syracuse 2,000 defective garbage cans where the bottoms all fell out.
It's so specific.
It is. Jack is screaming, "I'm not Bill, I'm Jack." But the stranger just winks and says, "Still the same old Bill."
The frustration is palpable because Jack is trapped in a reality someone else is dictating.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
It's the same escalating frustration we hear during the violin practice scenes with Professor LeBlanc.
Oh, poor Professor LeBlanc.
The audience knows Jack is a terrible violinist, but the joke isn't the bad playing. The joke is the escalating Foley work of the professor's absolute misery.
Right. The scripts explicitly call for Jack's violin to sound like a dying cat as he screeches through the glowworm and minuet in G.
And the professor's reactions become increasingly extreme.
He tries to hurl himself out of a closed window to escape the noise.
Yeah, he does.
In another episode, the professor's wife insults Jack's playing in rapid-fire French, and Jack smugly assumes she's complimenting him.
Naturally.
My favorite is the implication that Jack's playing is so biologically offensive, it actually turns a baby's hair gray.
What's crucial to understand about these running gags is that they function as a massive inside joke shared with millions of people simultaneously.
Yeah, it really brought people together.
The listener became an active participant because they could anticipate the punchline before it even arrived.
They knew it was coming.
They knew Jack was going to be stingy. They knew Dennis was going to be an idiot. They knew Mel Blanc was going to scream about Cucamonga.
I do have to wonder, though, at what point does a repeated joke stop being a joke and start becoming a chore?
That's a fair question.
If I hear the same punchline every week, eventually my brain is just going to tune it out. How did they keep Anaheim, Azusa, and Cucamonga fresh every single time they went to that well?
By weaponizing the familiarity.
Or denying it.
Yeah, once the writers knew the audience had internalized the pattern, they started subverting it.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, the announcer might start the famous phrase and suddenly get interrupted. Or a character might ask a completely unrelated question, and the answer happens to be Cucamonga.
Ah, I see.
In one brilliant script, Jack receives a letter of complaint, and it's formally signed the Big Three: Anaheim, Azusa, and Cucamonga.
That's so clever.
They use the audience's expectation against them.
It's a masterstroke in audience conditioning.
Truly.
Benny and his writers use specific audio cues, the train whistles, the vault alarms, the squeaky doors, the pregnant pauses to generate warmth and familiarity.
They built a safe, hilarious universe based on shared sonic real estate.
But this is where this deep dive takes a hard left turn.
Buckle up.
Because if you take those exact same auditory mechanics, the footsteps, the heavy breathing, the sudden loud noises, and you isolate them, you strip away the warmth, you get something deeply unsettling.
Oh, yeah.
While Benny was making America laugh, writers on the other side of the radio dial were using the exact same tools to create pure, unadulterated terror.
And the tonal whiplash between these two transcripts is staggering.
It's insane.
We are moving from the zenith of shared comedic warmth to absolute sonic isolation.
We are diving into the suspense episode titled Concerto for Killer and Eyewitnesses.
Such a great title.
And listener, when we say the tone shifts, it is a visceral shock to the system.
Yeah.
We go from a guy agonizing over a $4.50 diner meal to a guy handcuffed to a detective on his way to the electric chair.
The plot of this thriller is lean, mean, and incredibly tense. It is hard-boiled noir.
Yeah, it doesn't mess around.
It follows Detective Sergeant Jesse Crandall and his partner Delaney. They are transporting a violent convicted killer named Eddie Sitko on a train, heading toward the Joliet Penitentiary where Sitko is scheduled to be executed.
The script wastes zero time establishing the stakes. Sitko is handcuffed. He's wearing rough county jail clothes.
And he is a man with absolutely nothing to lose.
Nothing. He is consumed by a blinding hatred for the world, but specifically for a man named Dallas Kenyon.
Right, the individual who allegedly framed him and sent him to death row.
The syntax of this script is a radical departure from the comedy we just analyzed.
Completely different language, yeah.
In The Benny Show, the dialogue is allowed to meander, to pause, to let the laughter swell and fade.
Right.
In this suspense thriller, the dialogue is sharp, it's percussive, and it's kinetic. It has to do the incredibly difficult job of describing rapid physical action without sounding like unnatural exposition.
Let's break down the mechanics of the escape scene on the train, because it illustrates this perfectly.
Let's do it.
On a screen, you just show a stuntman fighting two actors.
Mm-hmm.
On the radio, they have to paint the violence using only words and sound effects.
Right.
The writer uses Detective Crandall's hard-boiled inner monologue to set the geometry of the scene.
The setup.
The train lurches, Sitko throws his body weight, Crandall narrates, "He brought his knee up into my face." And then Sitko snarls, "Where'd I get off? Copper."
The violence is intimate and brutal. Sitko wrestles the keys away, unlocks the steel cuffs, and uses them as a weapon to knock Crandall unconscious.
Just brutal.
And all of this is happening over the relentless, roaring foley of the train engine.
The sound design is crucial.
Sitko forces the window open and literally hurls himself from a moving train into the night.
Reading this text is like reading a graphic novel in a pitch-black room.
That's exactly what it feels like.
You are forced to paint the panels, the lighting, the sweat, and the blood in your own mind, guided only by the word balloons and the sound cues.
And once Sitko is off that train, the terror escalates because he is a wounded animal loose in Chicago.
Right, he's desperate.
He needs a disguise, he needs cash, and he needs a gun to get to Dallas Kenyon. Which leads us to a scene in a pawn shop that is genuinely difficult to read.
It really is. Sitko breaks into a shop owned by a man named George Bartlett.
Poor Bartlett.
Bartlett is the antithesis of a hard-boiled detective. He is a tragic, incredibly ordinary figure who has quietly run a legitimate business for 15 years.
And suddenly, the devil himself kicks his door in.
Exactly. Bartlett instantly recognizes Sitko from the newspapers, and the sheer panic sets in.
The dialogue here is a masterwork in establishing power dynamics. Sitko is a man of few words. He just barks cold, terrifying orders.
He's all business.
Bartlett, however, completely unravels. He babbles out of pure, unfiltered terror.
He's just trying to survive.
He desperately tries to placate Sitko, immediately giving up the locations of the guns, the cartridges, the clothes. He attempts this pathetic camaraderie, telling the killer, "I hate to see anybody get a raw deal."
It's the tragedy of a man realizing his life is entirely in the hands of a sociopath. Bartlett starts begging in a way that strips him of all dignity. He pleads, "Please don't beat me up. It's humiliating for a grown man to cry."
That line is so dark.
And then he delivers a line that defines the collateral damage of the noir genre. "I'm a little man. Everybody ought to give a little man a break."
It's a devastating plea. He is reducing himself to nothing to survive. But Sitko is a machine operating on pure nihilism.
He doesn't care.
He shows absolutely zero mercy. He replies, with ice in his veins, "I'll give you a break, little man," and then he attacks him.
Just cold-blooded.
We don't see the blow land, but we hear the sickening violence through the audio cues. The physical brutality of Sitko's escape perfectly mirrors the bleak psychological descent of his ultimate goal.
Which brings us to the philosophical climax in the script.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Sitko is bleeding. He is being hunted by every cop in the city. But he is singularly, obsessively focused on murdering Dallas Kenyon.
That's his only goal.
But before he makes his final run at Kenyon, he breaks into the apartment of his old girlfriend, a nightclub singer named Kitty Bell.
And this is where the tragedy becomes Shakespearean.
It really does.
Because, against all logic, Kitty still loves him. She looks past the blood and the headlines and sees the boy she grew up with on the stoop.
She offers him a way out.
She offers him genuine, tangible salvation. She tells him she can get a doctor for his wounds. She offers to run away with him to start completely over.
It's a real chance.
She begs him to let go of the hate, using this incredible phrase, "There's a time to live and a time to die." She is offering him life.
But Sitko is incapable of accepting it.
He just can't do it.
His paranoia has metastasized. When Kitty tries to convince him to forget about Dallas Kenyon, Sitko's twisted mind processes it as a betrayal.
He twists it entirely.
He immediately assumes she's trying to protect Kenyon. He accuses her of loving Kenyon, of wanting to turn Sitko in for the reward.
The desperation in the audio here is visceral. She's screaming, "I love you, we could have each other again."
And he just doesn't hear it.
And he just sneers back at her, "You and Kenyon, you and Kenyon." And then in a moment of pure, blinding paranoia and rage, he murders her.
It's horrific.
He kills the single human being left on Earth who actually wanted to save his life. The script doesn't cut away. It forces the listener to endure her screams and the struggle. It is horrific.
It is the absolute definition of nihilism.
Yeah.
He throws away his one chance at freedom, his one chance at redemption, all to fuel a revenge that has completely consumed his soul. He has become an entity that only knows how to destroy.
So he leaves Kitty dead on the floor. And finally, bloody, heavily armed, and completely dead inside, he reaches Dallas Kenyon's house.
The final showdown.
The police are forming a cordon outside, but Sitko slips through. He storms up the stairs to Kenyon's bedroom, gun drawn, ready to finally execute the man who ruined his life. He kicks the door open.
But he doesn't find Kenyon cowering in the corner.
What does he find?
He finds a sheet covering a body on the bed, and an undertaker standing quietly next to it.
It's a massive, cosmic twist of fate. Sitko demands to know what the sheet is for.
Right.
And the undertaker, completely unbothered, calmly explains that Dallas Kenyon died of a coronary attack just an hour prior.
Sitko's reaction is incredible to imagine. His revenge, the singular goal he broke out of a moving train for, the reason he brutally beat a pawnbroker, the reason he murdered the only woman who loved him, has been biologically stolen from him.
The universe beat him to the punch.
Exactly.
He is so enraged, so completely broken by the absurdity of this cosmic joke, that he rips the sheet back and empties his gun into the corpse.
He literally shoots a dead man.
And the gunfire, of course, draws the police, who rush up the stairs and gun Sitko down. It is an incredibly bleak, fatalistic ending.
But it's a brilliant one, because it perfectly emphasizes the absolute futility of Sitko's destructive path.
How so?
The writer is making a profound point about the void of vengeance. Sitko destroyed everything around him for a goal that was quite literally a dead end.
Now, I have to push back on this ending, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because if I'm a consumer of thrillers, I might find this incredibly frustrating. Isn't it a massive cheat for the writer to kill the main villain off-screen with a heart attack?
I can see why you think that.
Doesn't that rob the audience of the climactic showdown they've been promised for the last 30 minutes? You build all this tension, and the guy just dies in his sleep.
I would argue that if this were a standard action story, yes, it would be a cheat.
Right.
But this is suspense. The architecture of this show is designed to explore psychological torment, not just physical action.
Okay, fair.
A traditional shootout would have given Sitko agency. It would have validated his violence and given his dark journey a purpose.
I see what you mean.
By having Kenyon die of a heart attack, the script denies Sitko any victory, even a hollow one. It reduces a terrifying killer to a pathetic figure shooting a corpse.
That's a great point.
It is the ultimate punishment for his sins. It's not a cheat. It's a thematic masterstroke that denies the audience the easy catharsis of violence.
That actually makes perfect sense. The lack of catharsis is the catharsis.
Exactly.
The cosmic irony is the entire point of the episode. So we've looked at the underlying mechanics of these two vastly different shows.
Two very different worlds.
A warm, character-driven comedy universe based on shared sonic real estate, and a bleak, violent, nihilistic tragedy built on sonic isolation.
Yep.
But there is one final, incredibly fascinating element that both of these scripts share.
Oh, this is the best part.
It's something that completely shatters the fourth wall and drags you, kicking and screaming, right back to the reality of 1940s capitalism.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the completely unironic, deeply embedded corporate sponsor.
In today's media landscape, an ad is an annoying interruption, right?
Oh, totally.
You skip it on YouTube, you fast forward on your DVR, or you pay a premium subscription to avoid it entirely.
We do whatever we can to get away from them.
But in the golden age of radio, the sponsor was king. They were a Trojan horse of capitalism baked directly into the creative DNA of the scripts.
Let's start with how it functioned in suspense. The primary sponsor for this gritty thriller was Autolite, a company that manufactured car batteries.
Right.
And the tonal whiplash is absolutely staggering to read. You have this grim, violent tale of Eddie Sitko beating a detective senseless and jumping out of a train into the night.
It's so dark.
And then, completely cheerfully, a voice named Harlow Wilcox suddenly interrupts the broadcast.
Harlow Wilcox. He just pops in out of nowhere and starts enthusiastically pitching the Autolite Stay Full battery.
It's so jarring.
He's having this upbeat, folksy conversation with his buddy Hap, and they're aggressively reminding the audience that this specific battery, quote, needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use.
And they repeat that specific phrase, needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use, over and over again.
It's almost hypnotic programming.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this happens right in the middle of a citywide manhunt for a murderer.
Could modern audiences tolerate this level of cognitive dissonance today?
I don't think so.
Imagine you're listening to a super gritty true crime podcast. The host is describing a grisly, unsolved murder. And right in the middle of the blood spatter analysis, he suddenly breaks into an upbeat, in-character dialogue about the water levels in a car battery.
We would riot.
We would. We have a completely different psychological compartmentalization for media today.
We do. But it's important to understand that for a 1940s audience, these sponsors weren't viewed as interruptions.
Whoa.
No, they were structural pillars of the format.
How so?
Well, the commercials provided necessary pacing. In a tense thriller, they allowed the listeners to catch their breath.
Oh, that makes sense.
They functioned as theatrical act breaks, giving the writers a natural, accepted place to pivot the story or jump forward in time without confusing the audience.
And if Autolite was a structural pillar for suspense, Lucky Strike cigarettes were the entire foundation, the walls, and the roof of the Jack Benny program.
Oh, absolutely.
The integration of tobacco advertising into that show is so deep, it literally becomes part of the comedy.
Lucky Strike didn't just buy airtime. They permeated the creative consciousness of the writers.
Yeah, they did.
The letters LSMFT, which stood for Lucky Strike means fine tobacco, are baked into the actual jokes.
It's wild.
When Don Wilson, the show's announcer, is trying to justify his exorbitant lunch expenses to Jack, he explains that he ate lunch on Sunday, Monday, Friday, and Thursday. He abbreviates it as LSMFT.
And Jack Benny, without missing a beat, says, "Isn't that astounding? What does it spell sideways?"
It's so shamelessly commercial.
It is. But they get away with it because they wink at the audience while they do it.
Exactly.
They also use these real-life tobacco auctioneers, Speed Riggs and F.E. Boone, who would perform their rapid-fire auctioneer chants right in the middle of the show, acting almost like bizarre musical interludes.
The writers realized that if they had to include the sponsor, they might as well weaponize it for laughs.
Right.
In one script, Don Wilson and Jack get into a fake argument. Jack claims Don isn't talented enough to do the commercial on his own. So Don proves him wrong by delivering the Lucky Strike pitch using absolutely spot-on impressions of the actors Charles Boyer and Lionel Barrymore.
Come with me to the Casbah. Your lips look so beautiful holding that Lucky Strike cigarette.
It's incredible.
But the most audacious integration we found is a sketch where a hungry homeless man knocks on Jack's back door asking for a meal.
Oh, this one is crazy.
Jack, trying to be charitable for once, tells the cook to make him a hamburger. And the homeless man gives incredibly specific, bizarre instructions on how to prepare the meat.
The wording is so specific.
He demands the hamburger be so round, so firm, so fully packed, so free and easy on the draw.
Which was the exact Word for word national slogan for Lucky Strike cigarettes.
The audience in the studio absolutely roars with laughter.
Because the product placement is so brazen.
Right. It's so utterly ridiculous in the context of a homeless man ordering a burger that it transcends advertising and becomes a meta joke.
It's a level of corporate loyalty that is almost incomprehensible to a modern viewer.
It really is.
But it worked. That corporate money funded the creation of these massive, intricate audio universes.
And that brings us to the ultimate legacy of these transcripts and what they demand of us when we read them today.
Right, the big picture.
When we look at the big picture of this deep dive, we've spent this time exploring how the written word, translated through a handful of voice actors and some strategic Foley work, created entire realities.
Entire worlds, yeah.
Whether it was the hilarious, elaborate construction of Jack Benny's absurd underground vault, or the blood-soaked, rain-slicked path of Eddie Sitko racing toward a dead man.
The creators only ever provided the scaffolding.
Exactly.
That is the true magic of the theater of the mind.
Yeah.
The writers gave you audio establishing shots. The sound of a squeaking hinge and a splash of water told you there was an alligator in a vault.
Right.
The sound of a rushing wind and a grunt told you a desperate man had hurled himself from a train.
But you, the listener, had to paint the walls of the vault.
You had to envision the specific terror in the pawnbroker's eyes.
Your imagination built the sets, designed the lighting, and cast the faces of the characters.
It was an active process.
And that leaves us with a final, somewhat provocative thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We live today in a hyper-visual, on-demand, algorithmic world.
We do.
Every single detail of our entertainment is rendered for us on a glowing screen in flawless 4K resolution. The costumes, the explosions, the subtle facial expressions, it's all handed to us on a silver platter, pre-packaged and perfectly digested.
The visual work is entirely done for us by a machine. We are passive consumers of light.
Exactly. So the question is, have we lost the specific, active, imaginative muscle that these audio broadcasts demanded we use?
That's a great question.
When we no longer have to construct the world in our own minds, when we no longer have to paint the darkness,
Right.
are we losing a fundamental piece of our own creative capacity? Think about that the next time you turn off your screen and just listen to the dark.